Who's that? I just joined. I'm just looking over who's here. So excuse me.
That's no worries. We've got light attendance so far, but people usually trickle in, so.
Welcome to those who are here. How long do you want to wait to get started?
I think we should jump right in.
Yeah, okay, no problem. So welcome everyone to our October open council meeting. And to recap, this meeting is open to all members in good standing. This is a working council meeting, so we are following a tight agenda, and comments or chats from the membership should be reserved until the open forum. Our open forum time, there will be time for members to make comments or ask questions, but time will be limited based off of how many people want to speak and how much time we have. So we ask that everyone is respectful of each other's time and each other's desire to speak and have their voice heard. And depending on how many people want to talk, we might have to set limits. But at the end of the meeting, if you're unable to make your comments or have your questions answered, you can always submit a comment to the council@kingstonfoodcoop.com email by 3 p.m. Oh wait, that's if you wanted to submit one before, but you can always ask your questions to the council afterwards through the email. And after the open meeting, there will be a closed executive session with just the council members to discuss any sensitive topics that might directly harm the success of our collective co-op or would infringe on the rights or privacy of a staff member or a member owner. So we can begin with our co-op updates.
Thanks, Kendall. So co-op updates in our co-op, we have 1,274 total members, and within that 1,274, we have 241 solidarity members, which is pretty good. Like, our solidarity membership has been increasing, which is awesome. For other updates, we are having co-op office hours next Tuesday, so a week from today, from 6 to 7 p.m. It'll be in the Broadway Bubble community room, and it's basically an opportunity for people to come in and chat with us and give us feedback on things, and we'll probably have some sort of like prompt or maybe like guiding question or something for people to think about, or I mean, it's our first time doing it, so I think we'll figure it out as we go, but it's just an opportunity to like increase communication with community members, with people that are at the Broadway Bubble. And yeah, it's also a good just like face-to-face opportunity to talk with us, so we're excited for that. And also, we are going to be doing some more outreach at different organizations and like gathering feedback on programming. So yeah, I don't know if I was supposed to include that in the updates or not, but yeah, excited for the office hours with the co-op. So we'll be posting that on our social media and our website and sending that out in our emails as well. And am I missing anything, Lindsay or Sonia or anybody, for updates? Okay, cool. I'm gonna pass it back to you, Kendall. Thank you.
Thank you.
I always feel like a news reporter when I say that, like passing it back. But thanks, Kendall. Back to you.
Thanks, Siobhan. So we have our financial report, but our treasurer is not here. Would it be possible to get that update from Sonia maybe, or someone else?
Yeah, so in terms of our finances, we did receive the newest chunk of operational grant for the organization. And so at this point, we are then going to be moving forward. Thanks, Kevius. I was actually just pulling it up myself. But oh well, yeah, okay, that too.
Yeah, you can pull it up. That'll be better.
Sorry, I was just about to pull it up. So in terms of our financial committee, we've established our new Q4 goals, and we did receive the newest grant of $250,000 for the operations of the Kingston Food Co-op. In terms of goals and projects for next period, we are going to start transitioning our treasurer role. Excuse me, I've got a little cold coming on, so I apologize about the voice. So we're also going to be developing a capital project financial management structure so that when the construction grant comes in, we're able to account for any associated construction costs. And then we're also looking at a really a much better way of capturing membership equity, just so it's a little easier to keep track of, to pull records from, and to try and make it as transparent as possible for the co-op. So that's what we're going to be working on in the next couple of weeks. And in terms of account balances, you can see down here that we have about $265,000 in the checking account, a minimal amount in the savings. Membership equity actually is hovering around 161. So I have to add that number in there. Actually, it looks like I did, but it went away. And our grant reserves with GWI as of now hover around $250,000. So that's where we are with our finance report.
Thank you, Sonia. I think we can move right into the rest of the committee reports now as well. So, Lindsay, if you want to do governance.
Okay, yeah, Nina's not here tonight, so I'll do governance. So in the last few weeks, we finished the quarterly planning for the committee. And we finally finished the bylaws revision, everybody. We've only been working on that since May. We've sent it to the lawyer to just make sure that everything is legal. And then what we will do is create sort of like a side-by-side changes document so we can present it to the rest of the council, because the process is that it has to be approved by council before we can release it to be approved by the membership. By all bylaws changes need to be voted on by the membership. So that's something that will be on the April ballot when we do our annual elections for council people. It will also be a bylaws referenda. We also worked on creating a staffing structure to support the co-op development and the capital project. So we need, in order to do the construction, we need to hire a capital project manager. We also need a co-op project manager. You know, we've been running without one since Katie left in June. And so we've been working on like what that staffing structure should look like. And I do have linked to job descriptions. So I would love it. I know we're not fully in attendance tonight, but if everyone could just like have a look at that before our working committee meeting on Friday, so that we can make sure they're okay and just talk about how we're gonna release the jobs and what our you know hiring process is gonna look like, so we can move on that. And then so coming up for next month is that thing I just told you about with the bylaws line by line changes. We're gonna finish the policy register, and we're still looking to identify a facilitator for the strategic planning weekend coming up. I did have a really good meeting this morning with someone, so we'll see if that works out. I put some notes in the drive that you can all look over if you want. We're still working on this decision-making structure, and then also determining trainings and skills building for co-op members so we can do our volunteer gigs better. And our expenses this month were just the Policy Governance 101 seminar that that we are all taking as a group. The next installment will be Friday. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Development and programming. All right. A lot of great accomplishments over this past month within this committee. Three things that sound easy, but we finalized our programming. We finalized potential performance for the business itself, and we created the initial draft business plans. And now that the programming are finalized, I'll talk about the programming here in a very brief, but just sort of like where we landed on and the next steps in this process. So of course we have EBT, and one that we've been working on introducing into the pro forma is EBT Boost. So an extended benefit for EBT holders. Right now we're at an extra 5% for them. 5% discount for EBT holders. We've been a part of conversations around how to make our waste as sustainable as possible. We've gotten a lot of folks gave so many different references that I haven't condensed quite yet around just folks who are literally growing packaging here in the Hudson Valley, which is really cool. But we're firming up a partnership with Community Compost so that our spot is a drop-off compost spot. And you could be rewarded for it in co-op points and spend them right in the store. So, but for the greater community to drop off their compost there. On-site childcare, that was a huge one. There was a bunch of folks who are doing this in various ways that I connected with. And we've developed the legs for that in our performer too. Nourishment Network, partnering with People's Place, and a whole other line of folks in the food system to figure out two things. How can anyone walk in the store at any time and get groceries and it still not impact our bottom line? And two, how can we play a part in a greater aim of addressing food insecurity here in Kingston? The next one is Broadway Interdependence. To come up with this one, we were part of a bunch of, well, like 3 think tanks here of a bunch of different folks in food system, some of which folks on bodegas the bodegas on Broadway are part of. And we realized that the function that the Kingston Food Co-op could play is one of 2. So we can do shared storage. So that means buy in bulk so that their prices are a bit cheaper. And you don't necessarily have to like, oh, I can only get this at the co-op, I can only get this here. You can get anywhere, and we can help with that. And so have a storage that's dedicated to Broadway businesses, and then reward points. We've gone to dive into a way, speaking of interdependence, on how can reward points that you normally get at a store be used at any place on Broadway. So our Kingston Co-op points that you get for shopping here, can that be used down the street at, say, insert whatever the restaurant is, right? So those are things that we're toying with. The first one is definitely built into the plans. The second one is still in the works. Membership-based pricing. We figured out a way finally to have solidarity members on their necessary, their like basic essential products. It'd be cheaper for solidarity members and more expensive for members who are not solidarity members, just so that we can ensure that the folks who need it are getting it. So that's been a great sort of like one that we were able to crack the code on. We figured out a gathering space situation, and that also emerged from the greater conversations of folks in the food system of what we can serve and what function we can serve. And it came that since we have groceries and we have the opportunity to do space, we can put those 2 together for different educational initiatives and to in-house host gatherings with the groceries there too. Member maker program that will be held outside of the co-op, but we have dedicated space for community recipes. So if Betty makes chicken, you can find it at the co-op. And part of that Broadway interdependence, we're also figuring out ways that can be at other places too, and not just exclusively the co-op. But that's a part that we're playing in bringing these, recipes to scale. Education stations. From folks offering to do educational walkthrough experiences of the co-op, all the way from the local farms to local processing to the co-op. So you can literally walk through the co-op and get an educational experience, and you could QR code the different stops for different workshops and recipes and X, Y, and Z. We finally put the legs to that one too, which has been in the making. Transportation is the next one. Shout out to UCAT, who offered to donate vans for us so that we could have a member-driven way to get groceries from the Kingston Food Co-op, a part of the Nourishment Network, to say senior citizens' homes and to the different margins of our community who have a hard time getting groceries there. And that's another way that members can engage and get reward points. And this is super exciting that yeah, we have the opportunity of in-house transportation situation. And then the last one is member discount days. So we've built into the pro forma to have a discount day for members where you come in and everything is discounted for members. We haven't figured out the frequency yet, but right now it's built in as once a month, but that'll get fine-tuned in the next phase. So we finally landed all the programming. We finally, I was finally able to sit down with all of the different conversations I've had with everyone across the board. And the next step in this process is what we don't know yet, especially for the margins of our community, are the programs that require space. We don't know what square footage gets allotted to what space. So, what program gets allotted what square footage. So in the next phase, the schematic design phase, that's part of CIC's aim to do the same dot board exercise with different community groups around Kingston. And so the goals for the next reporting period is to have a template for our partnership roadmap. And I'll fill out that template a lot. And basically what that looks like is how are we incubating these things through opening, and what part do our leadership structures play in that? What are some strategic aims and efforts that need to go along with that? And that'll be developed in partnership with different folks in the food system and the think tanks and all of that stuff. And then the finalized draft business plans. There was some information that we couldn't use in the business plan because we didn't know quite yet, specifically around scheduling. So now that we know that, we can finalize our business plan and actually set up a roadmap for our future leadership team. Because right now we have business plans, but we want to add that roadmap component of it. And the only expense that we incurred was $2.5K for pro forma development. Shout out to Shaban, she's been incredibly amazing. If you need pro forma work, I recommend her. And so her contract was $5K, just to bring it to light. She satisfied half of that, and this is the other half. And so, yeah, that's the big mammoth of a committee that is development and programming. And I'll pass it over to community integration.
Thank you, Kevius. So in community integration, what has been done in the past month, we've set our Q4 goals while also rounding out the Q3 goals and accomplishing, I believe, all, if not almost all of them. We are working on what Kevius had mentioned, a dot board initiative to receive more of the necessary input from the community for the schematic design phase versus before where we were in the pre-design phase. And of course, also, like has been mentioned, the council office hours starting soon, which is, an accessible and more personal way for people to be able to be engaged with this process and give input and ask questions and form relationships with the other members and also the council members. And coming up, we are working on the next quarterly in-person event, which will be designed around the schematic design phase. And we'll have something to do with having input in that phase, similarly to the one in September, which was about the pre-design phase, and setting plans to reach our Q4 goals. So not too much on my end from this last round.
Capital Building Project Committee. So we completed the pre-design phase. Yay! Thank you for everyone that participated in the design event or the dot board feedback or, the various questionnaires that went out about that, that gave the architects, all of those programs that Kevius just presented. We had to, pre-design was like, what does this building need to contain? And so we were able to, with everybody's feedback, tell the architects, this is what we need it to house. We're building a building for these programs. So that was really fun. And as you just heard, we start on schematic design next, is the next part of the design process. So we also completed rough cost estimates, construction budget, so that we can put together an RFP to find a construction manager. And we initiated the legal discussion around the parking lot easements that we need. That's the first step. We have to have that in place before we can pursue a building transfer, because we're not going to take possession of a building that we don't have parking rights to, because then we won't be able to operate a successful store and it would be a big waste. So that's our first step on that. Goals for next period are, we're working on the contracts right now for the architects for the remaining entire design process. We're preparing for our grocery store consultants that are coming the first week of November. We'll walk around the space with them. And they're the ones that are really they're gonna work very closely with the architects, but in terms of, here's where registers go, here's where your refrigeration goes, you need these sort of mechanical aspects in these places. They hold that knowledge, thank goodness, because none of us do. And we're gonna put together the RFP to find a construction management firm. We want to contract them early so that as the architects are creating designs, we can create actual accurate construction budgets to make sure that we have funding in place for the project. And then as Kendall and Kivius both mentioned, we're going to work with CIC and Mass for the next upcoming feedback events around like prioritizing programming, what's the most important to the community in terms of all of those programs that Kivius laid out, and maybe more that we haven't gotten to, so that we can allot square footage and understand what really needs to be housed in the building and what maybe we can house in a partner building or something like that. So that's a lot. It's fun. It's also expensive. It will continue to be even more expensive as we go, but our capital projects, it says manager there, but it should say owner's representative. That's a contract job that we have, and thank goodness, because she is brilliant. And then some legal fees for mostly around the contracting process, making sure that the lawyers are the ones drawing up the contracts, and then also in terms of the parking easements that we need to create. That's what that covers. Any questions on that? No? I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay, and everyone for those updates. And is there any new business that needs to be discussed? Nope. Okay, well, in that case, we can move into our open forum. I'm gonna ask that anyone who wants to speak adds their name into the chat to be put into a queue, so we can kind of get an idea of how many voices we need to make time for. So feel free to do that now if you'd like to be called on to make a comment or ask a question. Okay, and we have 20 minutes for the forum.
Hi, this is Chris Montello. I don't know how to put my name in. So
Start us off.
the question is still what's going on with the people back there. Oh.
Yeah, could you repeat that if there's an echo going on? I think
Sorry, Chris, can you just repeat your question one more time, please?
It's still the same question. What kind of security for the people behind?
Everybody's gone. Everyone's been kicked out.
Questions about the spot. What kind of security are people going to have behind the food co-op?
So I just want to make sure are you asking, you're saying what is, it's kind of hard to hear you because there's music in the background. I'm sorry. So maybe do you want to type your question in?
Yeah. Okay, hang on a second. Question. I'm fucking not.
Do you know what you're asking or not?
While we wait for Chris's
Hello?
question. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
Hello? All right. Could you hear me clearly?
There's still a lot of background noise and you're going in and out.
Please bring up the sorry, we're letting Wi-Fi so we're in a diner. This is why we need in-person meetings.
Yeah. I'm in a diner right now with no Wi-Fi, and this is why we need in-person meetings.
Which we have in the works. We have office hours. We'll announce.
Okay. Well, all right. Could you hear me? Could you
I
hear me a
can.
little bit at least?
I can try it.
You're opposed to this placement that's happened in the name of the food co-op. Why is everyone still hiding behind Novo and not taking a stand against this? And why hasn't the transfer from Novo get a commitment around funding so members can make decisions, not billionaires? Why haven't y'all made decisions?
So if I kept, I mean, that sounds like a loaded question, but maybe if we start backwards on the most recent thing that I heard. So did you say that there are billionaires making decisions for the co-op? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, why hasn't anyone taken a stand against what's going on back there?
And I keep hearing scattered questions and I don't know which one to reply to first.
I don't know, maybe somebody else can answer besides Kivius again?
I mean,
I'm
anyone
having
can
a hard
answer.
time.
Why hasn't anyone taken a stand against Novo?
And what is Novo doing exactly?
People are being displaced. There ain't nobody back there anymore. Have you been back there, Kivius?
Yeah,
I can't talk Kivius.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just can't. I can't even speak no more. I mean, has anyone been back there?
Yep, I go regularly. Yeah.
The canopy, the last canopy got taken down and put God knows where. People are gone.
So again, I think we're still bouncing different topics, and I want to give you the full, elaboration of every point that you give, but we keep jumping between.
Okay, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Can somebody else speak besides PBS?
Oh, there we go. I see that it's what community member along the lines of what you're asking. That's in the chat.
I can't hear you.
Yeah,
we really need in-person meetings.
Well, that's in the works already. Could you text your question in the chat and we move on to another one?
I can't move on. Go ahead.
Hey, this is Jordan. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Before you speak, Jordan, Chris, do you mind muting yourself? Thank you.
Can you mute yourself?
Oh yeah.
Is he? Can you still hear him? No,
I can hear you better.
I think that's better. All Okay, so I'm gonna try to keep this short. This is like the third or fourth co-op meeting that I've been at where I've requested in-person meetings for obvious reasons. There's like 5 people at each of these meetings that aren't on the council. I think that pretty much shows that like it's not accessible or people don't care. I don't think that people don't care, so I'm just gonna throw this out there as an addition to what has already been brought up. Office hours are cool. In-person meetings actually build culture and build community. Zoom meetings are alienating. That's a statement and a request to please, like, I don't know what you're waiting on to do in-person meetings, but the next meetings, I would strongly encourage y'all to just make it in person. We have a building, so we could do it there. So that's one thing. The other thing is, again, yeah, I guess everybody's been forced out of the lot. We're seeing that. We saw y'all's frequently asked questions where you scapegoated the People's Cauldron, just like Novo did, who criminalized and arrested somebody from the People's Cauldron and put out legal things against a free clinic bus. Yes, y'all are complicit in this. We saw this question that obviously you were trying to make it seem like, which is true, you guys have not called the police, right? That is a fact. None of y'all called the police. You let other people call the cops without saying anything to them and just running off the scene as if someone, I don't know why. And Kevius defended that. And maybe it's just we don't know what most of the interactions have been with Kevius that have been negative. So when Chris is talking about how are y'all related with Novo and all that, obviously the co-op is funded by Novo. So, and yeah, is it, I don't know, I heard a number, is how many millions of dollars is it? This is a real question, I guess. How many, $8 million? Is that what the ballpark figure for what this will cost that Novo will contribute? Lindsay?
Wait,
Kendall?
so I want to get to all of your points. So I'm going to start from the top. So on the topic of in-person meetings. So these meetings are council meetings and they're open council meetings. They're not member meetings. When we have the big member meetings, such as the annual meeting and the introduction of the office hours and every other event, they have been in person. But it's typical for cooperative grocery stores to have open council meetings. So these meetings are our working council meetings. It's for the council, and we invite members to it. With respect to being in person, yeah, it's kind of hard to be in person in a lot of ways, in the sense that one, people are at various comforts given COVID is still here. Two, a lot of us have jobs that are other places, so sometimes it's hard to travel, especially because we all again have jobs, and traveling is hard. So it's a logistical thing, and we have to make sure we have the right accommodations. I saw one thing that you proposed was that we use the co-op space. However, our space is not suited for occupancy, and that we can actually cause harm to individuals. They breathe the air in as it is. So while, as we get things squared away and have more capacity on the council, and as we, have a leadership team at play, more in-person things can happen. Right now, we're doing the best in-person things that we can. And I think the introduction of the office hours is a great step in that direction. But to be clear, all meeting of the members have been in person. And this is an open council meeting to which we invite members, and all of our council meetings have primarily been online. So I hope that addresses that point. And I think Kendall wanted to add something to that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that point before we move on to another point, that we actually really have discussed and contemplated this. And the realization is that what is accessible for some people is inaccessible for others. And based off of time or people's or transportation, people's capacity, people's concerns with health, there's a lot of reasons why there would be people who were not able to go in person. And then we'd have the issue where it's also inaccessible for those people. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there where there's no way for it to be accessible for every single person. And this is the way that it seems to be most accessible. And we try to balance it, like Kiva said, by having our in-person events and opportunities like the open office hours. And you can address the next point, Kiva.
I'd like to add something.
Wait, Chris, could you add it in the chat or put your name so that we could come back to you? Because there's some other points of Jordan that I want to make sure we get to.
What's the budget?
That's on here. We're still figuring out the budget, and we will not completely know a final number until the end of our schematic design phase. And at the annual meeting, we plan to share more information once we know it, but everything is still in development.
How many million? I know you guys have had these conversations, and I've had them with Lindsay and you. I don't need an exact number. I need a ballpark, which you just floated around with some floaty language. It's really frustrating to talk to somebody who floats around answers, and the people who are actually showing up to the council meeting, you're just like, yeah, it's just very frustrating listening to y'all talk about, I get it, everybody's got jobs and everything, but literally, yeah, none of those answers really, those answers were fine to the extent that you were honest, but it's just, can you give me a ballpark?
So there
I heard $8
was,
million.
so there was a casual mention of 8 million, but again, we also have to be aware of what we put out because we are still a competitive grocery store. So once we have those things in order and we have it finalized, we are 100% sharing it. But we have to be very careful at this stage because the rug could be swept right up under us in this competitive market. So the information that we get and we can share confidently, especially to a meeting such as this that is broadcast to everyone for anyone to see, we have to wait until we have the final information and the things in order to ensure that rug doesn't get pulled from under us. So, I mean, you can use 8 million as an anchor. That's what we've used as an anchor before. And once we have a final number, we will share it with everyone.
That clarifies that. Thank you. Can I ask a quick question and then I'll take a break? I'm curious about the bodega. Have you guys talked to the bodega?
Yeah, so
because they're pretty concerned about gentrification.
Yeah, I'll add that to what you're saying, but I can address that point right out the bat. So there are a few different coalitions who have developed extensive relationships with bodegas outside of what the co-op has done in the past around just soft introductions. So while we have not done like the very intimate bodega relationship, which is in the works in our strategic plan starting Q1 of next year, we do have a lot of data and a lot of information and have had conversations around what folks need. But we wanted to make sure that when we do engage, we engage offering something that could actually help them. So outside of just, introducing ourselves, yeah, but the more intimate relationship, the Broadway interdependence, as I presented earlier, we do have the legs to be able to offer them something right out the gate. And on the topic of gentrification, that is precisely why we aligned ourselves with coalitions and think tanks so that we can think through this and added those programming and those.
Yes, I'm just going to interrupt you.
Wait, no. Excuse me.
The bodega next door.
Excuse me. That's not how this works. Okay. We've partnered with think tanks. We've partnered with various folks to ensure that we're developing a co-op in such a way that does not perpetuate gentrification as it holds. And as I was currently hearing of maybe saying something about the bodegas next door not knowing us or something or something like that. Again, this council has changed in the past couple of years, especially with COVID. So the folks they met back then may not be the folks they met now. I personally have not had a conversation with them. However, there are folks a part of these networks who have, along with an amazing woman who's developed a great relationships with a lot of Guatemalan restaurants there who've shared information and is leaving a soft introduction to folks from someone who has relationships with them so that we're not flying in blind.
So the answer is no. 10 minutes later. So the answer is no.
So your question is,
I want to add something. Maybe all the co-op members present don't know about this.
well,
Y'all like-
okay, before you add something, Chris, I want to make sure I get to Jordan's point. So could you hold and I make sure I get through the last questions?
You gave him a long, drawn-out answer. No, you haven't.
Well-
We heard you.
Hey, Chris, so there are current questions that I want to make sure I get through, and I want to give you all the time to speak, okay? So let me get through the last 2 points, and then we can circle back to what you're saying, because I want to make sure we address it all.
Okay, but simple yes or no will save us all a lot of time and energy.
Okay, there was a point that you mentioned, Jordan. You said that all of your interactions with me have been negative. May you elaborate on that a bit?
What I was saying, that all the negative interactions I've had with the co-op have pretty much been with you. So like, and I don't think that I'm the only one with that. And so I don't really want to discuss that too much. I think that I've had some positive interactions with you, but of the negative interactions that I've had with the Food Co-op Council, they have primarily been with you.
Okay, could you do it? Oh, sorry.
And this, but I don't want to waste time on we can,
Sure,
we
sure.
go
And I don't
and talk about this. But
but
my point for that is that when y'all wrote on this frequently asked question about saying that the food co-op never called the cops, you sat there and you stood there and watched as people called the cops and then defended why you let them call the cops on a situation they weren't involved with to two individuals afterwards. So no, have you guys called the cops? No. Have you mentioned anything to Novo about them calling the cops and arresting someone? I need a quick yes or no.
wait, so you're saying, have we mentioned to Novo about them calling the cops and arresting someone?
Arresting Chris for putting up a tent. Did you say anything?
We received information.
Well, he was just on the property. He didn't put up the tent, but that's whatever. The point being, have you said anything to Novo? Have y'all said anything to Novo about the displacement, the arresting people for mutual aid, any of that? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, tell me about it.
Like, I mean, it's a loaded question. Like, what exactly do you want to hear?
Well, you guys put out a frequently asked questions saying that you do not call the cops on people, and I'm saying that there's a contradiction. It doesn't matter if you call, but if you allow it to happen after you've been asked by members to speak up and support in solidarity, and the first time hearing about it that you've brought it up to Novo is now. I mean, come on.
So Jordan, to be clear, our FAQ around COP said that it stated a general policy, and it said that we have not called the cops, which we have not, and it said.
I know, stop, I read it.
But I'm just saying, we never said that we don't call the cops. That's not our policy. Our policy is there, our general policy around cop calling.
Right, given what your stated policy was, there was no, what does it say? It says, I can read it right now. Physical fights on the property, perceived threats of immediate gun violence, incidents and perceived threats of sexual assault. None of that applies to the situation that I was talking about.
Yeah, that's our policy. So when Novo called the
Right.
cops on you all, or sorry, not you all, but on Chris, from my understanding, it was they were banned from the property of a chain of events that has led to that. In face of that ban, that you all were made aware of, you stayed on the property, and after an hour and a half, the police were called by I can't remember exactly who, and then that's when an arrest was made. And I think the video also showed that there was an opportunity for Chris to leave the property in the police's presence, and that was not taken up. So our policy versus.
All right,
what others have done.
Kevius, I am done with you. Your answers are not answering the questions I'm asking. You're reiterating things that are unnecessary to reiterate, and it sounds like you're just trying to set a narrative for the video. Can somebody else answer this who can actually give a straight answer? Because so far I'm seeing that Kevius cannot.
Again, that's not how.
Again, you're just.
That's not how this
Kevius,
works.
we don't want to hear from you. Nobody
That's
in the
not
parking
how
lot
this
wants to
works.
hear from you. You're full of shit. You're constantly bullshitting us. Just
Okay,
stop.
okay,
Okay.
we're gonna end this open forum. Thank you all so much for coming.
Y'all are closing this open forum because you cannot answer a simple question.
No,
Kevius, you
we're
can't let
closing.
somebody else speak a
We're
simple question.
closing.
I'm asking,
We're
what was the
closing because we
conversation
went.
with Nova?
We're closing because we went over time, and even though we went over time,
Oh,
we're
that's
still
very convenient that you haven't.
questions. But we can't do disrespect and talking over people. That is not how this works at all. Okay, Kendall, may you close us out, and then we can go into executive session.
I'd like to say just one more thing, please, before we close this out.
An important part of all communication within the co-op is going to be general
Kendall?
respect, mutual respect, and that is the current issue right now. If things go beyond that, if it doesn't feel like we are having respectful conversations, then we are not going to allow that to happen, because that is against our values and our member conduct. So we can't continue to have conversations if it means that we are going to be harming the other members, and that is the issue. As well as the fact that Kevius can speak on behalf of the council as well as any of the rest of us can.
Okay, I hear you, Kendall. Can I say one thing before we close this meeting? That maybe some members aren't aware of what happened about last week. About a week ago, a friend of mine was living back there in a tent. One of the last ones now. A member from Samadi, I think it was Kelly, came by and extended rehab or housing for the winter to this person. And he had no other choice than to take it. Now, once he was packed up in the tent in the car, she also told him she wanted the tent down, or they wanted the tent down. So this is why it seems like y'all are in cahoots. Everyone who is getting money from Nova, well, not everyone, not the people with morals, but it seems like y'all are in cahoots. There's something else going on behind the curtains. Y'all are talking, and you all have one thing in mind: to get the people from back there away from there, one way or the other. I don't know if all the members knew or know about this incident. Somebody also overdosed 3 days ago. Myself and a friend were sitting on the bench, and after 20-25 minutes on working on this person, we brought this person back. And then somebody from the bubble lab called an ambulance, and the ambulance came. There was an interaction with the police that was escalated, partially my fault, partially the police's fault. They pressured this person into going into the ambulance, even though she was already awake for 15-20 minutes.
So I think we should transition over. Thank you for sharing, Chris. And also I'm aware of that situation, and also reached out to the Big Bubble to thank them for Narcanning that person.
I Narcan the person. I Narcan the person and worked on them, me and a friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad that, community comes when community can to help people in need. That's exactly what we need. But I think right now we need to transition over to our executive session. So we will stop the recording and thank you all for coming, and then transition over to that.
Yep, thank you all for being here and for sharing and like, you know, you can reach out over the council email, and we will be sharing more information about the office hours, which will be a good opportunity to get into more personal conversations. So we'll see you all soon.